Hey there, history fans. So now that the war is over and the US Constitution is being created, everything is just perfect in America and everybody's just going to live a long, happy life, right? No. Wrong, wrong, wrong! While they were even creating the US Constitution, there was a lot of concerns that the United States government was getting too much muscle. It was just getting too strong. That the US Constitution had given all kinds of power from the people to the US government. And so there was a lot of concern in creating this Constitution that the American citizens would not have any rights, that they'd be giving up their rights to the United States government. So it was necessary to create a shield to protect us from all of that power from the government. We call this the Bill of Rights. And the Bill of Rights is a listing of rights that we, the citizens, have to shield us from our government. All right? So the Bill of Rights begins with what are known as the first 10 amendments. So after the Revolutionary War, as you can imagine, a lot of Americans were afraid of giving too much power to their government. They were afraid that they might have just fought a war and then given all that power right back to another king, right? So the Bill of Rights is a formal listing of all the basic rights of US citizens. It is the first 10 changes or amendments to our Constitution. Here's a good little chart here that just kind of shows you all 10 of them in just one picture. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here going through those 10 and explaining to you what those 10 amendments are. So the First Amendment might be seen as the most important amendment. It has 5 basic freedoms. 5 basic freedoms. The freedom of speech is one of them, that you can say things that you feel, that you believe. And those things can even criticize your government. That's the real reason for having that freedom of speech, is because people used to be arrested for criticizing King George or criticizing the monarchy. So now you had the power to say what you wanted. The second of those 5 basic freedoms is the freedom of religion, the freedom to choose to follow a higher power, believe in a God, any God you could choose. And the government can't tell you which one to follow. And the government also can't choose to favor one religion over another. So they couldn't use tax money to be given to a specific church or mosque or synagogue. It also has the freedom of assembly, that people can group up and protest when they see things that the government is doing that they don't like. The next one is called the freedom of the press. The freedom of the press, I think of it this way, like writing something or typing something. The press is the media. And this is an extremely powerful right that we have, that our press, our media, can follow along with what the government is doing. How many of you spend every single one of your days in the White House? None of you. How many of you spend every one of your days at the US Capitol? None of you. How many of you spend every one of your days at the Supreme Court? None of you. But you know who does? The media, the press, the journalists. They follow along with what is happening there, and then they tell us, Americans, what is going on. Without that, there'd be all kinds of corruption. And the last one is the freedom to protest or to petition your government. To petition your government and tell them that you don't like what they're doing. You can actually sign a petition, sign your name, get hundreds of thousands of names, and send it into the government. So the First Amendment has 5 basic freedoms. Down below, right over here, in the italics, that's the official wording of the Bill of Rights. I'm summarizing it. If you want to read the official wording that James Madison wrote there, the father of our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, go ahead and check it out. Okay, the Second Amendment in the Bill of Rights, our shield, is the right to bear arms, right? Bear arms. No, not that kind of bear arms. To bear or own guns. Well, the actual wording says the right to a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security, of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And the reason for this was, do you remember the attacks on Lexington and Concord? Do you remember the Boston Massacre? How the government attacked the citizens? And so when they were creating this new Bill of Rights, they said we have to be able to own guns and have a militia to protect us from the power of the government in case they decide to attack us. That's the real reason for the Second Amendment. The Third Amendment. The Third Amendment is the freedom from being forced to house soldiers or quarter soldiers. Now, if you have a family member or a friend who is a soldier, can you let them live in your house? Of course you can. But leading up to the revolution, during the control of King George, that tyrant, he began sending British soldiers over to the colonies and forcing the citizens, the colonists, to house those soldiers, clothe them, pay them, feed them. And the citizens of this new country said, we are not going to allow those soldiers to be forced to live in our houses. So that's the Third Amendment. The Fourth Amendment. Hey, it's the police, let me in. The Fourth Amendment protects the people from unreasonable searches and seizures by our government. Now, these unreasonable searches could be of your home, your property, or of your person, of your clothing, your backpack. So a police officer can't walk up to you and just say, hey, let me look through your bag. I think you've been up to no good. They can't do that. They can't just knock on your door or kick your door down and walk in your house and say, hey, I'm going to start looking around and see if you've been committing any crimes lately. Okay? Been doing any criming? No, they can't just do that. There's a couple of rules that need to be followed. One is if they're going to search your property, your home, they need to have a warrant. And the warrant gives a specific address and place where they would actually be searching. The other way that the government could search your property is if they have reasonable suspicion that you've been committing a crime. So if they're walking by your house and they overhear a gunshot inside, they can come into the house. If they see a fire blazing, they can come into the house. If they can see in clear view through the windows of your car or of your house, they can come in if they see some sort of a crime being committed. But they can't just unreasonably search you or take your property without permission. Okay, the Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment is the rights for people who are arrested. Even if you're arrested and even if you actually committed that crime, you still have rights. Don't forget them. I hope you never need them. I hope none of you are ever arrested and you need the Fifth Amendment, but the Fifth Amendment protects you in a few ways. One way we think about is this one. I plead the Fifth. You maybe heard that phrase used before on TV shows and movies. I plead the Fifth. That has to do with this one right here, self-incrimination. Self-incrimination means you can't be forced to speak if you've been arrested because it is possible you might say something that either proves you're guilty or accidentally shows that you're guilty. When you are arrested, you also have the right to a grand jury. That means some way that they can make sure that you actually should be going on trial, spending your time. And the freedom from double jeopardy, which means if you've already been tried in court for a crime, they cannot try you a second time for the exact same crime. Now, it doesn't mean if you stole a bike and you were found innocent, and then you go and now you just steal more bikes because you're like, I've already been proven guilty or proven innocent for stealing bikes. No, it doesn't mean that. It's the exact same crime. So if you are accused of stealing a bike, they put you on trial for stealing that bike. You are found innocent, and then they go, we messed up. You know what? Let's try this all over again. And they do the whole thing again. That is called double jeopardy. You're free from that. You also have the right to due process, which means the government has to follow a set of rules if they're going to arrest you and find you guilty. If they don't follow those rules, your shield protects you and you will be free to go. All right, the Sixth Amendment is also rights of people who are charged with crimes. Now let's say that you've gone through the process I just showed you in the Fifth Amendment and they're going to put you on trial. They can't just say, you know what? We're going to get to your trial in about 17 years. No, you have the right to a speedy trial, which means as fast as possible, you will go on trial. You also have the right to a public trial. They can't just throw you in some dingy basement and say, you know what, that's going to be where we're going to have the court case or the trial down there in that dingy basement where nobody can see. No, you have the right to a public trial where people can observe what the government is doing to you. You also have the right to an impartial jury. Really, it means like a jury of your peers or your friends. Now, they're not going to get your actual friends, but you can't have a jury that already assumes you're guilty as soon as they look at you. They're supposed to assume that you are innocent, and the government has to prove that you're guilty. You also have the right to have the charges explained to you. If you're arrested, they should tell you why. And you have the right to a lawyer. You never have to appear in court without a lawyer if you don't want to. Now, they're expensive. Yeah, lawyers make a lot of money. Maybe that's going to be a job you want to do someday. But if you don't have the money, the government must provide a lawyer for you for free! Yes, for free. If you need a lawyer, one must be provided for you. The Seventh Amendment is basically the same as the Fifth and the Sixth Amendment. It gives you all the same rights, but instead of in a criminal trial, like this one where you've been charged with some sort of a crime, something illegal, theft or attack or assault or something like that, the Seventh Amendment is your rights in a civil trial. Now, a civil trial is not where somebody committed a crime. It's where something bad happened, but nobody really did something illegal. For instance, if you wanted to get a divorce, that'd be a civil trial or a civil case. Or let's say you had a tree in your yard and your tree fell over and landed on your neighbor's house. Maybe it landed on their dog and hurt their dog. You didn't do anything wrong, but you might be sued for that. So you have rights in with the Seventh Amendment when you are being sued for civil charges. All right, the Eighth Amendment. The Eighth Amendment is no cruel and unusual punishment. Now, this one includes a couple of things. Let's say that you're charged with a crime. You might have to sit in jail until your trial, and even a speedy trial might be 3 months away. Well, while you're sitting in jail, you haven't done anything wrong. You could post bail, which means you could pay a set of money to the government to let you out of jail until your trial. Now, you can't just pay money to say, oh, I'm free now, I'm innocent. No. The money is bail to let you out of jail until your trial. And excessive bail means they can't just go, you know what, let's call it $10 million bail. No, they can't do that. It has to be relatable to what the crime is and to your personal condition. And the second part is no cruel or unusual punishment for crimes. So they can't go, you know what, you were jaywalking. That means you walked across the street and there was no crosswalk there. So we're going to pull all of your fingernails out of your hand. No, that's a cruel or unusual punishment. They can't go, oh, you know what, you did steal that bike. We're going to tear one of your arms off. No, those are cruel punishments. They are unusual and just strange, that's all. All right, the 9th and 10th Amendment. I'm going out of order here. The 10th Amendment. This is called the Reserved Powers Clause, or reserved powers for the states. And what this really means is, if specific powers have not been given to the federal government, the United States government, then that means the states retain those powers. So for instance, there's nothing in the Constitution that says education is going to be controlled by the federal government. So that means the state government, the state of Minnesota, the state of Wisconsin, the state of Iowa, they get to decide how education is run in their state. They get to decide for marriage laws or how they run their elections, many other things, but those are some examples. So if the power isn't given to the federal government, the states get to decide on it. And I went out of order because the 9th Amendment really is the same thing. It's just for individuals. It's the reserved powers for you. So did you hear anywhere in the US Constitution that you have the right to own a business? No, it wasn't in there. Well, it wasn't in there, but it also wasn't taken away from you, so you have the right to own a business. If it's not protected by the Constitution, you still have other rights. You have the right to breathe fresh air. You have the right to get a job. You have the right to eat food. Those are rights protected by your 9th Amendment. Okay, now one last thing. Are your rights unlimited? No, of course not. And they're not unlimited. The phrase goes like this: the right to swing my fist ends where the other person's nose begins. In other words, I can do this, but as soon as I punch someone else in the face, I've now taken away their rights. So I have rights, all those rights I just listed, but my rights only go so far as they don't infringe on someone else's rights. Okay, so I'll give you a couple of examples. Can I speak? Do I have the freedom of speech? Yes. Can I criticize my government? Yes. Can I threaten to murder somebody in my government? No. Because now my right to speech has now, boom, infringed on someone else's right by punching them right in the nose. Can I be in an airplane and yell, fire, fire, and cause a panic? Well, I'm speaking. It's freedom of speech, but my speech has now panicked everybody else and could cause other people harm. I have the right to own guns or bear arms, but do I have the right to own a cannon or a tank or a missile launcher or a nuclear reactor or a nuclear bomb? No, I don't have those rights. Okay, my rights to own arms, guns, are limited. So every one of these rights has some sort of limitation, Even though the Bill of Rights is our shield, that's really all it is. It's our shield to protect us from the government. It doesn't mean we have unlimited rights to do anything we want and say anything we want. All right, so that is the Bill of Rights, our shield against all of the power that we've given to our government, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. Hey, by the way, there are now 27 amendments to our Constitution officially, 27 today. These were just the first 10 changes to that U.S. Constitution. All right, thanks for listening. I'll see you next time. History Huggins. Boom!